And thank you, Electra, for shaking SL. So here we go. Thank you, thank you. I'd like to welcome you to our first panel. I'm Becky Adams, Ellie Pinion in Second Life. I recently retired as the Director of Online Course Development and Faculty Support at the University of New Mexico. And thank you, Carolyn. I still teach one online class at the University College of Education and Human Sciences. It is for pre-service public school teachers on effectively using technology for teaching and learning. My research employed an online approach to support for public school teachers' professional development. I am a passionate advocate for accessibility and am very interested in this year's conference theme, No Health Without Peace. Really enjoyed the previous presentation. We have had a very interesting panel from varied backgrounds who will share how they view health and peace through their individual perspectives and life experiences. Unfortunately, one of our panelists was unable to make it today, but we're pleased to have Carol and Rose. Audience, please hold your questions and comments to the end so as not to interrupt our panelists, but we are interested in your questions when we get to the right time. First, we will start with introductions. Panel, please introduce yourself, including what country you are from, your disability or relationship to disability, and what your work is outside of SL. Let's start with Carol.
Thank you. My name is Carol Miller. I'm from the United States, and I don't usually think of myself as having a disability, but I do have hearing loss and I wear hearing aids. I have some personal relationships to disability. For example, 2 of my nephews are on the autism spectrum. My father has dementia, and my mother has severe hearing loss, which is probably what I can expect in the future. I also have professional relationships to disability. I'm a professor at Penn State University in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders, where I do research about how neurodevelopmental disabilities affect language development from childhood to adulthood. Most of my work has been with people who have developmental language disorder, but I'm interested in understanding the experiences of people with a range of disabilities. Most recently, I'm part of a team that is studying the relationships between speech, language, and swallowing in adults with Down syndrome.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. How interesting. How about you, Rose?
Thank you, and thanks for having me here today. I'm Rose Hill, Roro Pillow in Second Life. I'm also in the United States. I'm in Washington State, and I have a background in library science, but I'm currently in my last year of my clinical mental health counseling degree, and I'm specializing in trauma and crisis counseling. I'm also researching the intersection of mental health and AI. I currently work at Crisis Connections in Seattle, Washington. We run the 988 helpline for crisis support along with the Washington Recovery Helpline. And I have PTSD. Part of my work is supporting folks with mental health disabilities to be treated fairly.
Oh, how interesting. Both of you are perfect for our panel this morning. We look forward to what you have to share. So next, let's start with Rose. How would you describe what health and peace look like in your daily work, whether that's a hospital ward, classroom, or community center?
Yes, so my current work is primarily talking with people in their moment of crisis. I'm not doing long-term counseling right now, rather really focused crisis intervention. And a large part of these crises are either suicidal intent or drug addiction, severe enough that the person has reached a breaking point. So specifically in my work with clients, I'm triaging for immediate safety. If it's a call that doesn't require 911, I provide emotional support and reflective listening, hoping that being seen in that moment of crisis is supportive. Then we're looking at health and peace as a future goal for that person. So I'm using motivational interviewing to figure out, what do they actually want? What would health look like to you? What would peace look like to you? What I find is a huge challenge is that most of my clients are people whose problems would disappear or be radically improved by having more resources. So stable housing, nutritious food, money to pay bills, a means of transportation to and from appointments. And these are things that, while I can point them in the direction of the right resource to get started, even if they sign up for supportive housing or inpatient treatment, there's simply not enough resources for everyone who needs them. You know, the wait for supportive housing is months to years long, and what suffering is this person going through during that wait? So in the article, excuse me, No Health Without Peace, this idea that politics is medicine, I think what I see every day is that our political system itself is sick because the resources exist. We have more resources than ever, but the allocation of those resources is completely out of balance. And I'll just finish this question off by saying that while my work with clients is challenging, I have really fantastic coworkers and a work environment that's very supportive, emotionally mature, and I think a good example of a healthy workplace.
Well, those are such good points, and it's reassuring to hear that you have support with your colleagues, but we all really feel for those resources that are not getting to your patients. Carol, would you please describe what health and peace looks like in your daily work?
Yes. So I took a different tack on this than Rose did, but I thought about it through my work as an educator and as a researcher with a big interest in how children learn. And so health looks to me like having opportunities to learn in a way that fits your cognitive strengths and your needs. When kids and adults enjoy learning, when everyone can learn in a way that's natural to them, I think that promotes health of mind and body. And I would say peace is what makes these opportunities possible. It's only in peace that we have the time, the resources, as Rose was saying, and kind of the mental bandwidth to support diverse learners and cultivate those learning opportunities.
Excellent, thank you. And I really appreciate your different take on it for sure. So I'm going to start back with you, Carol. Let's start with you for this particular question. Many in our audience live with disabilities or support someone who does. How can peace, justice, and equity, be advanced through how we design care, classrooms, or community programs for people with disabilities?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this through my lens as an educator, and particularly as teaching first-year graduate students who are training to be speech-language therapists. And in our class this semester, we're thinking and talking together about culturally responsive practice and building a culturally responsive evidence base to support that practice. So to me, cultural responsiveness means humbly meeting people where they are. When your mindset as a practitioner or as a researcher is, I'm here to learn from you so I can better help you, I believe that attitude promotes peace, justice, and equity. Now that's all pretty abstract, so we do need to train students as well as ourselves to how we can concretely put that attitude into action. That's really the grand challenge, I think, and I'm learning that one of the most powerful tools to meet the challenge is the art of active, selfless listening. So I really perked up my ears when Rose talked about motivational interviewing with her clients who are in crisis. We want to do similar kinds of things with our clients in the area of communication disorders. And I think if we can be active, selfless listeners, we'll set our feet on the road to peace, equity, and justice.
Oh, and listening is not the easiest thing to do, and often, even as professionals, our needs come first. So that's a really excellent comment. Rose, for those who live with disabilities or support someone who does, how can peace, justice, and equity be advanced through how we design care for people with disabilities?
Yes, I loved that answer, Carol. And I think I was thinking of this in terms of consultation with those who have disabilities. So a lot of design choices are made by people that are not taking into account who's going to be using the service or the space. So I think that consultation should happen all the way through, not just at the end, somebody saying, hey, this works, right? But rather starting at the very beginning of the process and really allowing those with disabilities to be co-designers of the process all the way through. And then I also think that kind of consultation should be ongoing. So not just when a program or space is designed and put into action, but also as time goes by to see if it needs to be redesigned or changed. And through the mental health field lens, one way that I've seen this work really well for especially programs that are being designed is peer counseling. This is where I live. This is a certification you can get in most of the U.S. It can have different titles, but peer counselor or peer support specialist are kind of two of the most common ones. And essentially, this is someone who is approaching the field through lived experience and putting a value on lived experience rather than just academic experience. So I think when we design programs with a peer voice, they end up being stronger programs.
Oh, that's an excellent voice, because they are the true experts, aren't they?
Yes.
Back to Rose. What can your two fields learn from one another to create more peaceful systems of care and learning?
Yes, I love this question, and I think that knowing what it's like to be working in a different field is so helpful, because you really can get blinders on when you're doing the same thing every day and just inside of your own box. I thought about this pretty broadly. I think that understanding the scope and reality of what it's like in another field, like as in Carol's field. It's so important specifically for referrals, understanding when or when not to refer to someone. So I talk with clients all the time who are essentially passed from provider to provider to provider. And some of this is because they have complex issues or, multiple issues happening, but a lot of it is because I think the professional or the counselor thinks, well, if I can't help this person, probably a nurse can, or a teacher can, or whatever example can, then we make a referral. And that's great if it's an appropriate referral. If it's not an appropriate referral, then this client is with one provider who couldn't help them, sent to another provider who couldn't help them, and then yet to another provider, and so on. So I think, this can sound inconvenient, but really it's a lot more than inconvenient, because I am working with people who are essentially always one inconvenience away from a crisis. Like any small inconvenience could be that trigger into hopelessness or despair or suicidal thoughts. And I think that it is such a tipping point, because help seeking is such a vulnerable process that you're very open in that moment. So yeah, I think the stakes of a bad referral are high. So just understanding who you're referring to, what they can do.
Excellent. And perhaps you already feel you have, but can you share an example where collaboration across disciplines made a difference?
Yeah, I think we typically always work in a treatment team. So there will be, a prescriber, a counselor, a case manager who's helping them with different things. So I think it's funny that you say that, because I tend to not even think of my job outside of collaboration. Like I think of it through a very collaborative lens, like all clients need multiple providers. Yeah, that's what immediately comes to mind.
Excellent, thank you. And Carol, what do you feel yours and Rose fields can learn from one another to create more peaceful systems of care and learning?
I'm going to echo a lot of the things that Rose said, and she made me think of some other things. So I'll sort of do my prepared answer, and then with apologies to the transcriptionist, I'll go off script a little bit.
Oh, of course, no worries.
But so again, first of all, approaching this question as a teacher of pre-service graduate students in speech language therapy, the students need to see their clients holistically. That each client is a person with healthcare needs, mental health needs, educational needs, living in a community. And so each client is influenced by that community and influence it themselves. So in our field, the big thing now is interprofessional education and practice. And I think that's there. So interprofessional education and practice are increasingly recognized as essential for the training of healthcare professionals. That's true in speech language pathology and audiology, but I think it's true in other fields as well. I mean, that's what I heard Rose saying, really. And so I do think that interprofessional teams are one of the best ways to create more peaceful systems, and to manage care in a way that is making things easier for people, not harder, as Rose was saying. And then for an example, though, I'm going to turn this a little bit, because I'm also very interested in interdisciplinary collaboration in my academic life and my research life. And so it's a little easier for me to have a concrete example there, but I think it connects. So recently, I've been engaging in some qualitative research. All of my education and career was really around quantitative research. I've had the great good fortune to be able to collaborate with some colleagues who really know how to do qualitative research well. And so I'm beginning to appreciate the insights that can be gained through that approach to research. And so for me, those collaborations are really eye-opening. and I hope, by extension, I hope that my students will be able to kind of have a foot in both of those areas. Like, numbers are important and they're useful, but so are just listening to people and thinking deeply about their stories. So that's my thought on that example.
Oh, absolutely. And in education, we're often isolated, so working with a team can really broaden our understanding, can it? I love that you guys have really enjoyed that in your professions. Moving on, Carol, why don't you start with this? Conflict can be large scale, like war, but also personal, such as chronic stress, discrimination, or marginalization. How can professionals in your field support healing and resilience for people living with ongoing everyday conflicts?
Yeah, when I thought about this question, I thought how for many people with communication disorders, their lives are filled with everyday conflicts, like being overlooked, dismissed, ignored, underestimated. And I would say that's true for many people with disabilities in general, but of course I kind of see communication disorders first. And so I think speech language therapists do and should put a spotlight on communication as a human right. And so it's something that everyone should be able to communicate in the way that works best for them.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Rose, how about you? How can professionals in your field support healing and resilience for people living with ongoing everyday conflicts?
Yes, and I love that answer, Carol. That is a wonderful way to put it. I agree. I thought of that when I was thinking about this question. I think one of the biggest ways the counseling field can support people is by advocating to reduce stigma. And I think this applies to all disabilities, reducing stigma against disabilities. But I think it's so important to understand that stigma isn't just external, but also internal. Internalized stigma is so powerful and often impacts how we show up in the world, how we think we're allowed to show up in the world, what we're allowed to ask for. And I want to just give an example that is opioid use disorder. So OUD, for many people who are diagnosed with it, meets the ADA definition of a disability. Also, many people with OUD were originally prescribed opioids for chronic pain or for another chronic disorder. But folks with OUD are hitting stigma at multiple levels. They get stigmatized as dirty rather than clean, drug users who don't deserve basic care. They're often presumed to be criminals or that they'll bring crime to an area. And I see this in working with people who've just come from emergency rooms. Folks who come to the ED post-overdose don't get treated. They're told just stop using and sent on their way home. But this categorizes addiction as a choice, even a moral choice that people are choosing to use over and over rather than suffering from a brain disease. So what I see is that these people desperately need good care. They need understanding professionals and systems, and they need to be able to advocate for their own rights and needs in these situations, which often they don't know, partly because of internalized stigma. So I think working to destigmatize mental health and substance use disorders, along with disabilities across, all spectrums, is just essential. And two ways I think of doing that are educational initiatives are a powerful way to reduce stigma, external stigma in communities. And then to reduce internalized stigma, I mean, obviously, I recommend therapy, but generally self-reflection is so essential. I mean, that can be anything from journaling to just sipping your coffee and thinking about things. But knowing that self-reflection isn't a one and done process, but a recursive process that keeps going forever.
Oh, thank you. Such excellent points, ladies. And that internalized stigma is a very big deal. So I think, excuse me a second. I guess Carol will take you first on this one. The authors of the article, No Health Without Peace, argue that science and social practice are the same. If our audience takes one small action toward greater health and peace in their own community, what would you hope it would be?
Yeah, great question. One thing is I'm kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about qualitative research and how that is often motivated by that very principle that science and social practice are one and the same. And I realize the authors of the article also meant it in a broader sense, but qualitative research really kind of brings those together. But aside from that, I think my suggestion for an action would be tell your elected representatives and officials that educational policy matters for your vote, especially as it affects people with disabilities, that you vote on these issues.
Oh, excellent and timely, for sure. And Rose, if our audience had to take one small action toward greater health and peace in their community, what would you hope it would be?
Yes, so I think it would be to act as if your voice matters. And I say act as if because a lot of times we assume that our one voice won't make a difference, or we doubt our voice and the impact it can make. But if we act as if it matters, if we practice acting as if, then we can hopefully start to see that it does matter. And, in the end, a single voice is always the tipping point into change.
Great, thank you. I'm crossing my fingers that my speakeasy is still on track, except I keep asking you, Carol, first, but I think you don't mind. Starting with Carol in one sentence. What gives you hope about the connection between peace, health, and community?
My bright and compassionate students who are aware of that connection and want to learn more.
Love that. Rose, what gives you hope about the connection between peace, health, and community?
I think that we're having this conversation here today. that gives me hope, because even if some of this lives in the ideal, the fact that we're discussing it deeply matters and will make a positive impact.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. And we all need to hear that, for sure. We can make a difference. So we have a lot of time, actually, for a few questions. Audience, do you have something that you'd like to ask our panel? You guys have been so articulate. How do virtual worlds fit into these solutions? That's a great question.
Oh,
Who'd like to go first?
well, I'll try. I'm new to Second Life myself, so just sort of discovering its capabilities, and I'm thinking about what Rose just said. I think virtual worlds like Second Life give people a place where they can express their voice and maybe feel safer. And so, yeah, it can be a way to find your voice and learn sort of the ways or the confidence to express yourself more broadly.
Could not agree more. Go ahead, Rose. Yeah, I also agree with that answer, Carol. And I think just only looking at it through a kind of mental health lens, I think there are so many mental health disorders that, I mean, and this applies to disabilities across the board as well, but just because I'm in the mental health world, where showing up in person is challenging, if not impossible. And the options, if you don't show up in person, are isolating, lonely, and they can, exacerbate your mental health issues. So I think that it gives a place to be where you actually do have, memories that are made. You have the visual of the memory. You're in a shared place with people. So it makes that accessible when, for many people, showing up in person is not.
That's exactly what I was thinking, and thank you, Jenna, for letting me step in as well. One of the things we see in education is that virtual worlds and online opportunities do make things more democratic. So everyone is fairly equal. They have the same opportunities. They can feel safe sometimes, as you guys have mentioned, where you might not want to go to a mental health specialist. You can be a part of a community such as Virtual Ability and have colleagues that have the same expertise or experiences that you have, and it can make the avatar person behind the avatar feel a little more comfortable, a little more included, less lonely, as you have mentioned, and also have opportunity for reaching people or being around people that you normally would not have. One of the things that is very exciting to me about online and virtual worlds is that I could not go to, and I forgot what our speaker was, where our speaker was from, but the Midwest. But he has expertise that I can take advantage of, and people around the world can work together, which has been a huge benefit me personally. So I think there's a lot that are that virtual worlds offer in this regard. It's a great question, Gentle. Thank you. And anyone else have one? You guys have done a great job. Oh, good. How does social media impact peace and health? You're good at this, Rose, I bet.
That's a great question. And I think my short answer is negatively. I think it's hard to see really much benefit from it. I mean, there was this, the original idea is we're going to be more connected now, but I think, and I could look for the source for this. I think it was from Maria Reis, I think is her name, was studying how lies spread on social media and that they spread 6 times faster than the truth because they often evoke stronger emotions, and anything that evokes stronger emotions kind of just moves faster. So yeah, I think it's hard to think of. The more we lose sight of what is true, I think the harder it is for us to find peace if we're all kind of living in different realities.
Great answer. Carol, do you have any opinions?
Yeah, I basically, I think I would, again, agree negatively is how it affects things. But it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one, I was sitting here thinking, well, one way that social media has been helpful, I think, is in just helping us disseminate research findings to the people who can use them. And it can make that process more efficient. But the other edge of the sword is, just as Rose was saying, it's also misinformation and pseudoscience can get disseminated extremely quickly as well. So, yeah, what the net gain is, I'm not sure there is a net gain.
Excellent answers. And I'm still kind of stunned that truth is taking a back seat, it seems like. And perhaps it is social media that has caused that. Buffy has a question. I love hearing what you are all hoping for, but what are your fears that things won't change?
Well, okay, I'll try that one. I guess my fear is that we will become accustomed to things not being as they should be, and accept it and feel that we can't change it, because it just gradually kind of nibbles away at you until it seems like this is normal and therefore acceptable. So yeah, so maybe another reason why events like this, why virtual worlds can be helpful, is to help. I don't exactly want to say stoke outrage, because I'm not sure that's good either, but we need to keep reminding ourselves that things don't have to be the way they are. And maybe virtual worlds can be helpful in reimagining things and remembering how to be creative and not to just accept things as they are.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that made me think about a frog in a pot of water, right? And it starts to boil. But then if the water is turned down a little bit, not off, but down, it gets a little less hot and the frog feels okay. it feels better, right? Because it's no longer boiling, but it's still uncomfortably hot. I think that's kind of how we get used to things, is like it gets really bad and then maybe it improves a little from the really bad, but it's not actually how it should be.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think, yeah, having ways to advocate, having ways to verify what's real and not, I think that gets harder and harder. So then it's harder to know who's advocating based on facts or just emotion. But I will say, I think my hopeful note on that is that things always change. So even if they revert for a time and then advance for a time, whatever state it's in, it will eventually change. But I think that we just need to make sure that voices don't disappear in those changes.
And I don't think you guys are reading the chat, so I will read it to you. Buffy says, great answer, thank you, and a great analogy. And Namara says, it's like the old dog and rocker story. It just don't hurt bad enough. And
Right.
Gentle, yeah, and Gentle said, that really scares me. So, yeah, that was a great question, Buffy. Thank you very much, and thanks for your answers. We actually have time for more. One more? Oh, Val, do you think the nonstop breaking news incoming into our lives and the many voices sharing online play a role in challenging our peace and health? And if so, how do we help the next generation deal with too much incoming nonstop so-called news?
Well, I can speak to this from a mental health lens of just that essentially what is happening in the brain with dopamine when we're scrolling, when we're seeing these clickbait headlines, it really does mimic addiction exactly. Our brain starts to actually go into withdrawal when we don't get that next hit. It's like mimicking that. So I think that's an exhausting place to be. And I think maybe what scares me most about it is that it's being not only like condoned, but encouraged by our systems, by the apps we use and by media. So we're not really giving ourselves a chance to not be stuck in that cycle. Yeah, so it's definitely an issue.
For sure.
Yeah, I thank you for pointing out the relationship to addiction, because my first response to that was, I want to tell, like, I think of my undergraduate students, and maybe it's too late for them, but I want to tell young people, just turn it off. You can turn it off. Do it. But I also realize that's not as easy as it sounds, for at least for many people. So that's the message I want to give, is just turn it off. But I don't know if everybody can really do that.
And I'll just add to that, there's some really good research into how quickly our brain starts to balance out when we take breaks. Like, I think the last one I read was like people taking like a 4-day break from social media saw this really positive increase in mood. So there's hope. I think if we could build in breaks, that would be good.
Yeah.
It's lovely to hear that there is hope. Absolutely. Thank you. So I'd like to thank you so very much, Carol and Rose. You've brought up such interesting points and examples. This has been a very good discussion. It's very encouraging that we can really make a difference, each one of us, and that we have hope for the future. I'd like to thank our wonderful audience, the great questions, and the amazing team that is bringing us this conference. And if you'll give us, the panel, a big round of applause, and we will have a little break before our next discussion. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much for having me.